Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, AARP Wisconsin, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
Joe Lavrenz of Fond du Lac is a Democratic candidate in the 53rd Assembly District. Joe, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
As you campaign, what do you consider the top one or two biggest issues for you?
The biggest issue that I want to run on is healthcare. I want to make sure that healthcare is provided for everybody at an affordable rate, if not just free to everybody. We should have Badger Care for everybody or Medicare for all, either way, because I see what the drug prices are right now. They're skyrocketing, and it's pretty unaffordable for a lot of people in order to actually get the drugs that they need to stay healthy. And just going to the hospital without insurance, it's ridiculous. Even if you do have insurance, you're paying a ton. I'm sorry about that.
No. How would you preserve and expand healthcare in rural Wisconsin?
I think that we just need to expand taking the Medicaid expansion would help a ton, because that would offer up a lot more money that we could use in the rural areas. Try and upgrade the facilities out there. I know that rural is a challenge. Similarly, my dad had to take an ambulance ride just a few days ago, and it took a half an hour for him to get there. And if it was it could have been a serious emergency, he probably wouldn't have made it. And I think that that's the type of thing that we need to work on, make it faster access to the people that are out in the rural areas to get actual good medical coverage.
Does state government have a role in recruiting and retaining doctors and nurses and other medical professionals?
I think they could. Just trying to get the best quality doctors that we can in the area, and making sure that they stay here in Wisconsin and provide their services, to as many people as they can.
There's a pilot program between state government and Delta Dental that subsidizes clinics that provide dental care to the low income. Should this be a priority in the next state Medicaid budget, do you think?
I don't know the details of the program, but that sounds like a great idea. I think that we really should look at expanding that out and making sure that people, especially people with low incomes, can actually get the coverage that they need. Because if they can't, then they're just going to get sick and not provide to the workforce like they could.
As you campaign, have you been hearing about caregivers? AARP estimates that 578,000 Wisconsin residents are caregivers for family members or neighbors. And so my question is, would you support laws or regulations that call for hospitals to recognize family caregivers when their loved ones are hospitalized?
Yeah, I think that I would support that. It just feels like, I know that that's happening for a lot of people. Actually, my situation when I used to live in Sun Prairie, when I was living with my now ex, we had her mom lived with us, and she took care of her. And just having access to the, any additional money from that would have helped a ton, where it was, instead of it just being supported by, my income.
The impasse in the Capitol over how to pay for highways, bridges, maintenance, and construction. There's a gridlock. How do you think it should be broken?
That's going to be a tough one. I think that we need to get more money into the roads and get them fixed. I'd like to see more money get to some of the more rural areas, because right now they can only build about one road project a year, with the money that they're getting. And that's just not enough to maintain, quality roads that we really need here. I think that the state level, we should be able to disperse that money better.
Would you consider raising the gas tax, the vehicle registration fees?
I would look at gas tax first. I think that that's probably the easiest one to do.
What about tolling?
I do not like the idea of tolling. I think that the upfront cost of building the tolls would just offset way too much of the gains, and we wouldn't see a return on that for years. So I think that raising the gas tax is a much faster and easier way to actually provide some of the much needed revenue.
State government has set aside $100 million for school safety grants. Is that enough, or do we need changes in our gun laws?
I think that we can do some alterations with the gun laws. I would like to see some better, work on the background checks and registration, but $100 million is probably a good start. I think that time will tell if that's enough. We can start, we can at least test out the program and see, if more changes are needed.
State government has voted to give Foxconn potentially billions of dollars in tax breaks and tax benefits. The state assembly that you wanted to join has voted to give Kimberly-Clark similar tax breaks. When should state government help private companies?
I think that helping private companies is a slippery slope. As we saw with Foxconn and now with Kimberly-Clark, what's to stop, in my area, Merck Marine, from, asking for a giant donation basically from the state government to stay? And then we move on to G&L or any of the other big companies around there. I think that you really can't start what we've already done, and we need to cut that off, because the state government shouldn't be picking specific private companies to win, over the course of, some of the smaller businesses, like our just small businesses in general, which are the ones that are suffering right now.
So you would have voted against both the Foxconn and the Kimberly-Clark?
I would have voted against both of those, yes.
The current state budget does include a significant increase in state aid to public schools, our K-12. When local school district administrators and principals tell you we need another significant large increase in the next state budget, do you support that?
I would, because right now, where we're at right now, our budget is still lower than it was when Walker took over in the first place 8 years ago. And that the funding really needs to be restored to at least those levels in order to get good quality education. We're losing a lot of teachers to outside the state. They're moving to Minnesota, Illinois, anywhere else that they can get, a better paying job.
Part of this debate is the growth of the voucher and the choice expansion. We've started out in Milwaukee, now we're seeing now statewide. Your position on choice?
I think that choice is okay, but I don't like the voucher system as it's set up right now, because a lot of those schools are not really regulated as our public schools are, and the amount of money that the voucher schools are getting per student is significantly more than what the public school students are getting. And I don't think that that's fair. It should be more balanced out to where it's equal. I think there's a place for the voucher schools, but I don't think that we need to, use tax money to pay for it. I think that should be run like a private industry, as it basically is.
A big question in the next state budget will be whether we need a new state prison. The prisons in Green Bay and Waupun were built in the 1800s.
Sure.
Some Democratic candidates for government said we could cut our prison population in half over a few years. Do we need a new state prison?
I think we could upgrade the existing ones. I think we could actually, I agree with the other candidates, we could definitely cut our prison population in half. I think legalizing marijuana and freeing a lot of the prisoners that are in there just on, not necessarily drug selling charges, but just possession charges. Because as long as they're nonviolent, they're not going to really pose a problem. It's still obviously something that you can, talk to the different people, make sure that we're letting out the right people. But I think upgrading the facilities is something that we could start looking at first before building an entirely new one.
And if you want to legalize recreational marijuana, then you also support medical marijuana?
I would.
You would. The UW system budget, we've had a freeze on resident undergraduate tuition for 6 years. The governor would like it continued for a 7th and 8th year. Your position?
Part of we have to keep the costs lower for people coming in order to actually use the system. So I think that a freeze would probably still work, but I think that we need to start looking at needing to up the charges at some point too, because 6 years is a long time. And going on to 7 and 8 without adjusting for inflation, adjusting for, different raises that we have to give to the teachers and things like that, it's not very sustainable.
You're a first-time candidate. What have you learned about the 53rd District as you campaign in it?
It's very diverse. There's a lot of people all over the place. I go from Waupun, which is the biggest city that I cover, up to like Amro and Algoma and Rosendale, and they're very small, a lot of very small cities, and everybody kind of knows each other, which is awesome. Yeah. I live in Tachita and Fond du Lac for most of my life, and you always know your neighbors, and so everybody kind of knows everything. As I've been talking to people when I've been doing doors in the smaller towns, a lot of times if I leave for a day and then come back the next day, all of the neighbors already know that I'm coming. So I guess they get a warning if I'm coming, or at least they have an idea of what I'm looking for, or what I'm hoping to do for them.
Maybe final question, differences between you and the Republican incumbent you're challenging?
I'll be honest, I don't know as much about him as I probably should. And I've actually never met him. I'd like to at some point. I think that'd be a fun talk, just so we could try and compare some things that we're working on. A big reason why I'm challenging is because he hasn't had a challenger in the last 2 cycles. Oh. So I think that we really need to give people a choice, between the 2 different candidates. If for nothing else, that it's better when one side doesn't have it all the time. You need to be able to at least have the discussion.
Okay, thank you. Joe Lavrenz of Fond du Lac is a Democrat running in the 53rd Assembly District. Joe, thanks for talking to WisconsinEye.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
A lot of fun.
Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, AARP Wisconsin, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.